The Galactic Academy of Planetary Sciences was the most famous school in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, built from crystal and metal that glowed with soft light. Students came from 17 different species to study there. Some were tall and thin like walking sticks. Some were made of gas that floated in special containers. Some had skin like stone and moved slowly through the halls. The academy taught them all about planets, about life, about the strange and wonderful things that existed across the galaxy. Sat in the back row of Lecture Hall 7. She was 23 years old, with dark hair that she kept tied back and skin that had been touched by years of sun and wind. Her hands were rough from work. Her eyes were sharp and curious. She was the first human to ever attend the academy. When Earth joined the Galactic Compact 6 months ago, the academy had offered one seat to a human student, had won that seat by being the best marine biology student in her country. Now she sat surrounded by aliens, trying to understand lectures given in languages her translator device sometimes struggled with. The professor today was called. He was in being, tall and thin, with large compound eyes that caught the light in strange ways. His voice came through the translator as calm and professional. He moved his 4 arms as he spoke, activating holographic displays that filled the front of the room. Today we discuss the classification of announced. These are planets where conditions are so extreme that no civilized species could survive without heavy protection. Understanding these worlds helps us appreciate the safe, stable environments where life can truly flourish. Leaned forward slightly. She had not heard this term before. It sounded dramatic. The holographic display changed. A planet appeared, rotating slowly in the air above the professor's head. It was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. Green and brown continents spread across the land. White clouds swirled in patterns recognized immediately. Her breath caught in her throat. Planet Sol 3 said, locally known as Earth. This is a textbook example of a Class 7. It is considered uninhabitable by all civilized metrics. Blinked. She looked around the room. The other students were watching the display with expressions of fear and disgust. A student in the front row flickered nervously, its gaseous body changing colors. A stone-skinned rumbled something low and worried. The display began showing data. Numbers and warnings appeared next to the rotating image of Earth. Axial tilt of 23.5 degrees, read. This causes extreme seasonal changes. Temperatures can shift by 50 degrees or more between seasons. The surface freezes in some areas, then burns in others. Frowned seasons. He was talking about seasons. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. She had always loved the way the world changed through the year. Atmospheric oxygen content of 21%, continued. This is extremely high. Oxygen at this level creates constant combustion risk. Fires can start and spread with minimal ignition. Fires, remembered camping with her father when she was young. They had roasted sweet potatoes in the fire and watched the flames dance against the dark sky. Active tectonic plates. The surface of this world is constantly moving. Earthquakes happen regularly. Volcanoes erupt with little warning. The ground itself cannot be trusted. Thought about the earthquake drills she had done in school. They had taught her to hide under her desk and cover her head. She had never thought of it as strange. Solar radiation reaches the surface with minimal filtering. The planet's magnetic field is present but inadequate. Harmful rays constantly bombard any creature foolish enough to venture outside. Sunlight, he was talking about sunlight, had spent countless summer days at the beach feeling the warmth on her skin. She had gotten sunburned more times than she could count. Native fauna includes apex predators in every biome. Land, sea, and air all contain creatures capable of killing most known species. The oceans alone hold animals larger than this lecture hall. Whales, he was talking about whales, had gone whale watching once off the southern coast. She had cried when she saw them breach, so beautiful and huge and alive. Weather phenomena include hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and monsoons. Any of these events can destroy structures and kill unprotected individuals within minutes. Remembered typhoon season. Her grandmother always made them tape the windows and stock up on food. They would sit inside and listen to the wind howl, playing cards until the storm passed. The Academy's official classification committee has reviewed all available data, concluded. Earth has been deemed permanently uninhabitable. No species could survive prolonged surface exposure without extensive environmental suits and protective technology. The room was quiet. Students were taking notes, nodding in agreement. Some looked relieved that they would never have to visit such a terrible place. Raised her hand. His antennae twitched. He seemed surprised. Perhaps students did not usually ask questions during classification lectures. Yes, the human student. "I am sorry," Professor said. Her voice was calm and steady. She did not mean to cause trouble, she was simply confused. "But that is strange. I grew up playing outside." The lecture hall went completely silent. Every alien in the room turned to look at her. Compound eyes, glowing orbs, sensor stalks, crystalline surfaces that reflected her image back at her. They all stared. "I beg your pardon?" asked. Earth said, "I grew up there. I played outside every day when I was a child. I did not wear any environmental suit. I did not have any special protection. I just went outside and played." In the front row made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. Its gaseous form flickered and destabilized for a moment before it managed to pull itself back together. "You are saying," said slowly, "that you existed on the surface of that planet, exposed, without protection." "Yes, my whole species lives there, 8 billion of us. We all live on the surface. Well, most of us. Some people work in submarines underwater, but that is different." 8 billion, a student repeated. Its voice was like rocks grinding together. 8 billion organisms survive on a Class 7. "We do not just survive," said. She was starting to realize that something very strange was happening here. "We live there, we build cities, we grow food, we raise families. Children play in parks and swim in lakes. Old people sit in gardens and watch the sunset. It is just normal life." Professor's mandibles clicked rapidly. His translator could not interpret the sound, but she guessed it meant something like shock or disbelief. "There must be a translation error," he said finally. "When you say outside, you mean inside sealed habitation domes." "Yes. Protected environments that simulate outdoor conditions while filtering the deadly elements." Shook her head slowly. "No, I mean outside, under the open sky. My grandmother has a farm in the countryside. I used to help her during harvest season. I worked in the fields from sunrise to sunset. The sun on my face, the wind in my hair, my hands in the dirt." Someone in the third row made a choking sound and collapsed. Medical drones emerged from the walls and rushed toward the fallen student, their lights blinking with urgency. Watched them work, still confused. She had only told the truth. She had only described her childhood. What was so frightening about that? She looked back at the holographic image of Earth, still rotating above the professor's head. It looked so peaceful from up here, so blue and green and full of life. They called it. Strange. She had always called it home. The medical drones carried the unconscious student out of the lecture hall. It was a species with bioluminescent frills along their necks that changed color with their emotions. This one's frills had gone completely dark, which apparently meant extreme shock. The drones would take it to the medical bay, where it would recover in a few hours. Fainting was not dangerous for. It was simply their body's way of dealing with information too stressful to process. Watched all of this with growing confusion. She had not meant to cause such a reaction. She had only answered a question honestly. Professor had not moved from his position at the front of the room. His compound eyes remained fixed on. His 4 arms were frozen in mid-gesture. The holographic display of Earth still rotated behind him, beautiful and blue and apparently terrifying to everyone except her. "Perhaps," said slowly, "you could explain in more detail." She was not particularly tall by human standards. Back home, she was considered average height for a woman, but something about the way she moved made all the aliens lean back slightly. There was a confidence in her posture, an ease in her body that spoke of someone comfortable with existing in the universe. "What would you like to know?" she asked. "You breathe the oxygen." "Yes, we need it actually. If there is no oxygen, we die. We can only survive about 3 minutes without it." "But the combustion risk." "Things do catch fire sometimes. We are careful with flames, but we also use fire deliberately. We cook our food with it. We heat our homes with it. We gather around campfires at night and tell stories." Smiled at the memory. "Fire is dangerous, yes, but it is also useful. We learned to control it a very long time ago." A student raised one of its heavy arms. Its skin was gray and rough like granite. "You speak of solar radiation. Our data shows harmful rays reaching the surface constantly. How do you survive this?" "Our skin protects us somewhat," explained. "We also produce something called melanin, which absorbs some of the radiation. People with more melanin have darker skin and are more protected. People with less melanin have lighter skin and burn more easily." "Burn?" "Yes. If we stay in the sun too long without protection, our skin turns red and painful. It peels off after a few days and new skin grows underneath. We call it sunburn. It is uncomfortable but not usually dangerous." They made a sound like boulders crashing together. Translator rendered it as impossible. "We also invented something called sunscreen," continued. "It is a cream we put on our skin. It blocks some of the harmful rays. People use it at the beach or when they work outside for long periods." "You invented a technology to survive your own sun," said. His voice had an odd quality to it now, something between horror and fascination. "I suppose we did. We also invented clothing which covers our skin, and buildings which let us escape the sun entirely when we need to, and we sleep at night when the sun is not visible. Our bodies evolved to work during daylight and rest during darkness." A gaseous pulsed with agitated colors. "The seasonal changes, the temperature extremes. How do you survive winter?" Thought about winters in her country, the snow that covered the mountains, the cold that bit at exposed skin, the way her breath turned to fog in the air. "We wear warm clothing," she said. "Multiple layers of fabric that trap heat close to our bodies. We build heated buildings and stay inside during the worst cold. We learn to preserve food during warm months so we have enough to eat when nothing grows. Some animals store fat and sleep through the entire winter. Humans do not do this, but we learn to prepare in other ways. And summer, when temperatures rise. We wear light clothing. We stay in shade during the hottest parts of the day. We drink lots of water to stay cool. We invented something called air conditioning, which makes indoor spaces colder than outside. And we swim." "Swim?" "We go into bodies of water, lakes, rivers, oceans. The water is cooler than the air, so it feels refreshing. Children especially love swimming in summer. I spent most of my childhood summers at the beach or in the river near my grandmother's farm." The room was very quiet. Could hear the soft hum of the ventilation system, the click of mandibles, the whisper of gases moving in containers. "You enter the oceans willingly," said. It was not quite a question. "Of course, humans love the ocean. We swim in it, sail on it, fish in it. Some people spend their whole lives working on boats. I studied marine biology because I wanted to understand the creatures that live beneath the waves." The creatures pulled up new data on the holographic display. Images appeared of sharks, whales, giant squid, jellyfish. "These creatures, you share the water with them." "Yes, most of them are not dangerous to humans. Whales are gentle. Dolphins are friendly and playful. Fish mostly ignore us. Sharks can be dangerous, but attacks are rare. Jellyfish sting, but their venom is usually not deadly. You simply have to respect the ocean and understand what lives in it. Respect the death zone, someone whispered. Did not see who said it. It is not a death zone to us, she said gently. It is home. The danger you are describing is real, but we grew up with it. We evolved alongside it. We are part of it. Professor was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke again. The native fauna on land. Predators exist in every region. How have 8 billion humans not been killed by them? Paused. This was a more complicated question. We handled the predators, she said carefully. Handled. Humans are very good at surviving. When we first evolved, we were not the strongest creatures on our planet. We were not the fastest or the biggest, but we were smart and we worked together and we did not give up. If a predator threatened our communities, we found ways to kill it or drive it away. We made weapons from stone and wood. We set traps. We hunted in groups. You fought the apex predators of a Class 7. Yes, and we won. His voice was matter of fact. Most large predators learned to avoid humans. The ones that did not learn were killed. Eventually, we became the apex predators. We spread across the entire planet. Now we have to protect the other animals from ourselves because we became too good at hunting. Protect them from you. We have conservation programs. Protected areas where hunting is forbidden. We try to keep endangered species from going extinct. Otherwise, we might accidentally kill them all. Nobody spoke. The silence was so deep that could hear her own heartbeat. Finally said, I must consult with the Academy Council. Class is dismissed for today. Students began to file out of the room. They moved slowly, carefully, keeping their distance from as they passed. She watched them go, still not quite understanding the magnitude of what had just happened. A small lingered near the door. Its frills were flickering between blue and yellow, which his translator helpfully identified as curious frightened. It stared at her for a long moment, then hurried away. Gathered her things and walked out into the corridor. The halls of the academy were beautiful, all crystal and light, but she barely noticed them. Her mind was still stuck on the lecture, on the holographic image of Earth, on the word that Professor had used. She thought about her grandmother's farm, the cherry trees in spring, the sound of rain on the roof, the smell of her grandfather's cooking, the warmth of the sun on her face during harvest season. Home, she thought, they called my home a death world. She wondered what they would think if they actually saw it. Word spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. A human walked their halls, an actual, not in an environmental suit, not surrounded by protective force fields, not accompanied by medical teams prepared for emergency intervention, just walking, breathing the same carefully regulated air as everyone else, drinking from the same water fountains, sitting in the same classrooms on the same chairs. Students gathered in small groups and whispered. They watched from safe distances. They compared notes on what they had heard, each version of the story more extreme than the last. She breathes pure oxygen, one student claimed. She has swum in liquid that could dissolve our bodies. She has touched open flames with her bare hands. She has been struck by the unfiltered radiation of her star and survived. She has eaten the flesh of creatures that died violent deaths. Some of these claims were exaggerated. Others were perfectly accurate. The aliens had no way to tell the difference. Noticed the attention but tried to ignore it. She focused on her studies, on the alien biology textbooks that were fascinating even when the translation was rough. She ate her meals in the cafeteria, choosing foods that looked most similar to what she ate back home. She slept in her small dormitory room and dreamed of the ocean. But she could not ignore everyone forever. Eventually, the academy assigned her to a study group, and she found herself sitting across a table from a young named. Was nervous. His bioluminescent frills kept flickering through colors too fast for his translator to interpret. His hands, which ended in delicate tentacle-like fingers, trembled slightly as he arranged his study materials. "You seem uncomfortable," said gently. "I do not bite." Made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a choke of fear. "I am sorry. I'm attempting to assess the danger you represent." "Danger? I'm a student like you. I am here to learn." "You are from a class 7. Your planet has produced predators at every level of its ecosystem. Pack hunters, ambush specialists, venomous creatures in every biome. Your own species has conducted wars that killed millions of individuals. Your history is written in violence and blood." Was quiet for a moment. She could not deny these things. She knew her planet's history, the wars and suffering, the cruelty humans were capable of inflicting on each other. But she also knew the other parts of that history, the kindness and love, the art and music, the way people came together in times of crisis. "That is true," she said finally, "but I am just a graduate student. I studied marine biology back home. I want to understand alien ocean ecosystems. I am not here to hurt anyone." "You swam in the oceans of Earth." Frills turned a dark purple that was starting to recognize as fear. "Since childhood." "Since I was 5 years old. My father taught me. He grew up near the coast and loved the water. He said the sea was in our blood." "The same oceans that contain creatures larger than this building." Smiled. "You mean whales? They are gentle mostly. They sing to each other across vast distances. Some species are curious about humans. They swim close to boats and let people watch them. It is beautiful." "And the sharks, the predators with rows of teeth designed to tear flesh." "Shark attacks do happen, but they are rare. Sharks usually do not want to eat humans. We are too bony and do not have enough fat. Most attacks happen because the shark mistakes a swimmer for a seal or other prey. If you understand sharks, if you respect them, you can share the water with them safely." Frills flickered between colors for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "How? How can you be so calm about this? You describe monsters and death traps as if they are minor inconveniences." Thought about the question seriously. How could she explain something that felt so natural to her? "When I was young," she said, "my grandmother told me a story. She said that long ago, before cities and technology, our ancestors lived in the wild. They slept under the stars. They hunted for food. They faced predators and storms and harsh seasons with nothing but their wits and their community. They died often, but they also lived. They watched sunrises and held their children and laughed around fires at night. The world was dangerous, but it was also wonderful. And slowly, over thousands and thousands of years, they made it safer. They built shelters. They learned to farm. They created tools and weapons and medicine. Each generation made life a little easier for the next." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We did not escape the danger," she continued. "We adapted to it. We became part of it. The same sun that can burn our skin also gives us warmth and light. The same ocean that can drown us also gives us food and beauty. The same fire that can destroy also cooks our meals and keeps us warm. We learned to balance on the edge between danger and safety. We became very, very good at surviving." Was staring at her. His frills had settled into a steady blue, which her translator told her meant deep thought. "You are saying," he said slowly, "that humans do not avoid danger, you master it." "We try to. Sometimes we fail. People die in accidents, in natural disasters, in conflicts. Death is part of our world just as life is. But we do not let fear stop us from living. We climb mountains because they are beautiful, even though we might fall. We sail across oceans because we want to know what is on the other side, even though we might drown. We explore and build and dream, always reaching for something just beyond our grasp." "That sounds exhausting." Laughed. It was a genuine sound, full of warmth. "Sometimes it is, but it is also exciting. Every day on Earth is a small adventure. Even ordinary life has moments of wonder and danger and joy all mixed together. I think that is why humans are so curious about other worlds. We grew up on a planet that taught us to be brave." Was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, more thoughtful. "I have studied many species," he said. "I have learned about their biology, their cultures, their histories. I thought I understood the galaxy, but you make me realize that I have never truly understood what it means to survive." "Survival is not just about staying alive," said. "It is about living fully, about taking risks for the people and things you love, about facing your fears and sometimes conquering them, about falling down and getting back up again. My grandmother always said that a life without challenges is a life without meaning." "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She is. She is 73 years old and still works her farm every day. She has survived typhoons and earthquakes and personal tragedy. She has lost people she loved and kept going. She is the strongest person I know." Frills flickered through several colors before settling on a warm orange. His translator suggested this meant respect. "I would like to meet her someday," he said. Smiled. "Maybe you will. The Academy is planning an expedition to Earth. They want to verify everything I have told them. I have been asked to guide them. They are going to my home. I hope they will see it the way I do. Not as a place of danger and death, but as a place of life and beauty and endless possibility." Was quiet, then he said something that surprised deeply. "I would like to volunteer for that expedition." But you have been afraid of me since we met." "I am still afraid," admitted. His frills pulsed with honest colors. "But I am also curious, and I think that is very human of me." Laughed again. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, she felt like she had made a friend. The Academy's governing board met in a chamber at the center of the station. The room was circular, with seats arranged in a semicircle facing a central platform. Beings from a dozen different species sat in those seats, representing the most powerful civilizations in the Galactic Compact. They had built empires. They had conquered diseases. They had traveled between stars. And now they sat in uncomfortable silence, trying to figure out what to do about one human woman and her impossible claims. Stood on the central platform. She had worn simple clothing, the kind she might wear at home. Dark pants, a comfortable shirt, her hair tied back in a practical ponytail. She faced the council with the same calm she had shown in the lecture hall. The head administrator was a crystalline being named Orel. Its body was made of interlocking geometric shapes that caught the light and scattered it in rainbows. When it spoke, the sound was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We must verify your claims," Orel said. "You understand our concern. If what you say is true, the implications are significant." "I understand," replied. "What do you need me to do?" "We propose a joint expedition. Academy observers will accompany you to Earth. You will demonstrate human survival capabilities in conditions we have classified as lethal. We will document everything." Considered this. That sounds like a nature documentary. "We do not understand this reference." "Never mind. It is a form of entertainment on my world. People film animals in their natural habitats and add narration explaining their behavior." She smiled slightly. "I suppose you will be doing that with me." Orel's crystalline body chimed with something that might have been confusion. "You are not disturbed by this proposal. We are essentially asking you to prove that your species can survive what we consider impossible conditions." "I am not disturbed. I am going home. That is never disturbing." The expedition team was assembled within a week. Would lead them, of course. Professor volunteered as the senior academic observer, had formally requested permission to join, citing his research interest in extreme biology. 3 other species representatives would accompany them, each wearing environmental suits rated for the most hostile conditions in the galaxy. Their ship landed in the Korean countryside on a spring morning, had chosen the location carefully. Her grandmother's farm was far from the big cities, surrounded by mountains and forests and rice paddies that stretched toward the horizon. It was beautiful here. It was peaceful. She hoped the aliens would see that. The ship's door opened and stepped out onto the grass. The air smelled like rain. A light shower had fallen early that morning, leaving everything fresh and clean. The sky was soft gray with patches of blue. Cherry trees dotted the landscape, their pink blossoms floating on the breeze like snow. Closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She had not realized how much she missed this. The Academy's recycled air was clean but lifeless. This air was alive. Behind her, the aliens emerged from the ship. They moved slowly, carefully, their sensors beeping with constant warnings. Compound eyes scanned everything. The other researchers huddled close to each other, ready to retreat at the first sign of danger. Only stepped forward, his frills flickering with rapid colors. "The pollen count is elevated," he said, reading his suit's display. "Organic particles are everywhere. My suit is advising retreat." "It is cherry blossom season," explained. "People travel from all over the world to see this. They consider it beautiful." "Beauty is subjective," said. "Toxicity is not." Reached up and let a falling blossom land on her palm. It was soft and delicate, pink and white. She showed it to the aliens. "This is a flower petal. It will not hurt you. It is just pretty." None of them looked convinced. A door opened in the farmhouse nearby. An old woman stepped out, shading her eyes against the soft gray light. She was small and bent with age, her face lined with decades of sun and wind and laughter. Her hands were rough from years of work, but they moved with practiced ease as she smoothed her apron. The old woman called, "You are home." His face lit up with joy. She ran across the grass and embraced her grandmother. "I missed you so much." Held her granddaughter tightly, then pulled back to look at her face. "You look thin. They are not feeding you enough at that school, and you brought friends." She peered past at the cluster of aliens in their protective suits. "Will they stay for dinner?" Laughed. "Grandmother, they are afraid to take off their suits. They think the air will kill them." Made a dismissive sound. "City people, always worried about something. The air here is good, clean mountain air, better than any machine can make." She walked toward the aliens without any fear. She was 73 years old and had never left Korea. She had never seen an alien before today, but she approached them as if they were neighbors who had stopped by for tea. "Welcome to my home," she said. Her Korean was translated through the device. "You look uncomfortable in those suits. Are you too hot, too cold? I have water if you are thirsty." The aliens did not know how to respond. This small, wrinkled human woman was treating them as guests rather than researchers. She was offering hospitality instead of scientific data. "We are fine," managed. "Thank you for your concern." "You do not look fine, you look scared." Turned to, "Why are they scared? There is nothing dangerous here." Chose her words carefully. "They think Earth is very dangerous, grandmother. They think humans should not be able to survive here." Stared at her. Then she looked at the aliens. Then she laughed, a deep, raspy sound from the bottom of her lungs. "Not survive. My family has farmed this land for 5 generations. My grandmother was born in that house. Her grandmother was born in that house. We have survived floods and droughts and wars and everything else this world has thrown at us. And these creatures think we cannot survive." She shook her head, still laughing. "Come inside. I will make tea. You can see how humans survive. We drink tea and eat good food and take care of each other. That is the secret. It is not complicated." The aliens looked at each other. Their sensors continued to beep warnings. Their suits continued to advise retreat. But something in confidence reached them. Something in her easy laughter and warm eyes. One by one, they followed her toward the farmhouse. Walked beside. His frills were flickering constantly, cycling through more colors than she could identify. "Your grandmother is not afraid of anything," he said softly. "She has lived a long life," replied. She has learned that most things are not as frightening as they seem, and the things that are truly dangerous she has learned to handle. I want to learn that, said. I want to understand how you live without fear. We do not live without fear, corrected gently. We feel fear all the time. We just do not let it stop us. We feel it, we acknowledge it, and then we move forward anyway. My grandmother says that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important than fear. They reached the farmhouse door. Inside was already preparing tea, moving with the efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. What is more important than fear? Asked. Smiled, life, love, family, friends, the work we do, the people we care for, the future we want to build, all of it. Fear is just one voice among many. We choose which voices to listen to. She stepped through the door into her grandmother's house. After a moment followed. The expedition lasted 1 week. 7 days that would change everything the galaxy thought about Earth and the strange creatures who called it home. The aliens documented everything. Their sensors recorded data constantly. Their cameras captured images that would later be studied in universities across 100 worlds. Their notes would fill databases and inspire research papers and start arguments that would continue for generations. They watched work her fields from dawn to dusk. She moved through the rows of vegetables with practiced ease, bending to pull weeds, checking the soil, carrying heavy buckets of water. The sun rose above the mountains and poured light across her weathered face. By the time evening came, she had been exposed to more solar radiation than it could survive in a lifetime. She did not seem to notice. She simply wiped the sweat from her forehead and went inside to cook dinner. The aliens watched help her grandmother in the kitchen. They used fire, open flame, controlled combustion just a few feet from their bodies. They cut vegetables with metal blades sharp enough to slice through flesh. They handled boiling water and hot oil with casual confidence. The kitchen was full of dangers that would terrify any civilized species. The humans called it cooking. The food was delicious. Even the aliens who could not eat solid food admitted that the smells were pleasant. Had made traditional dishes, rice and vegetables and soup, the kind of meal she had prepared thousands of times before. She served it with pride and insisted that everyone eat until they were full. Humans bond through food, explained Tu. We share meals with people we care about. It is one of our oldest social rituals. You digest organic matter that was once alive, said. His frills had settled into a steady color that suggested he was growing used to being constantly amazed. You break it down inside your bodies and convert it to energy. Yes, that is called eating. It is terrifying and impressive. They watched walk barefoot through the grass. Her feet touched soil that contained billions of microorganisms, insects, fungi, bacteria. She stepped on plants with thorns and roots with sharp edges. Her skin was tough enough to handle it all. They watched her pet the animals that lived on the farm. A dog wagged its tail and licked her face. Her grandmother's cats wound between her ankles, purring. These were descendants of predators, animals whose ancestors had hunted and killed, yet they lived alongside humans in peaceful partnership. You domesticated apex predators, observed. You took wolves and made them into companions. It happened slowly, said. Over thousands of years, wolves that were friendly to humans got food and shelter. Humans who had wolves nearby were safer and more successful at hunting. We helped each other. Eventually, wolves became dogs and dogs became family. On the 4th day, took them to a nearby river. The water was cold and clear, running down from the mountains. Fish swam in the shallows. Dragonflies hovered over the surface. Took off her shoes and waded in. The alien sensors went wild. The water contained microorganisms. The rocks were slippery. The current was strong enough to knock a person down. Every logical analysis said this was dangerous. Laughed and splashed water at, come in, the water feels amazing. I would die, said. You do not know that. I am very confident. But he watched her swim with something like longing in his eyes. She moved through the water as if she belonged there, as if the river had been made for her. She dove beneath the surface and emerged laughing, water streaming from her dark hair. This was a human in her element. This was what evolution on a produced. Not a fragile creature hiding from danger, but an adaptive survivor who found joy in the same environment that would kill most species. On the sixth day, a storm came. It rolled in from the mountains in the late afternoon. The sky turned dark. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Lightning flickered behind the clouds. The aliens retreated to the center of the farmhouse. Their suits raised shields to maximum. Their sensors screamed warnings about electrical discharge and atmospheric instability. This was exactly the kind of deadly weather phenomenon described in every classification report about Earth. Sat on the porch with her grandmother, watching the storm approach. Had wrapped herself in a blanket and held a cup of tea. Her eyes were calm, watching the lightning flash across the sky as if it were a show put on for her entertainment. When I was a girl, she said, I used to run out into storms like this. I would let the rain wash over me, feel the thunder shake the ground. My mother hated it. She said I would catch cold or get struck by lightning, but I could not resist. The power of it, the beauty, nothing else made me feel so alive. I did the same thing, admitted. Still do sometimes. There is something about standing in the rain that makes you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. That is my granddaughter, said with pride. Inside the house, watched this exchange. Two humans, one young and one old, sitting calmly at the edge of what his sensors classified as a dangerous electrical phenomenon. They were not just surviving, they were enjoying it. The storm reached the farm. Rain hammered the roof. Lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the walls. The aliens huddled together, their protective shields glowing. And stayed on the porch watching. Something shifted in his understanding. He had studied humans as survivors of impossible conditions, as oddities of evolution. But he had not understood what that really meant until this moment. Humans did not survive despite their planet's hostility. They thrived because of it. The same forces that should have killed them had instead made them stronger. They had learned to love the things that frightened other species. They found beauty in storms and joy in danger and peace in chaos. They were not afraid of their world. They were in love with it. The storm passed by morning. The sun rose over mountains washed clean by rain. Everything smelled fresh and new. The expedition team prepared to return to their ship. They had more than enough data. They had recordings and samples and observations that would take years to fully analyze. But more importantly, they had something that could not be measured by any sensor. They had understanding. Insisted on sending them off with food. She had prepared packages of dried vegetables and preserved fruits, traditional snacks that she claimed would not spoil. For your journey, she said, you cannot travel on an empty stomach. The aliens accepted the gifts with something like reverence. This small human woman, who had lived her entire life on a planet that terrified them, was worried that they might get hungry. Was the last to leave. He stood at the edge of the farmyard, looking back at the house and the fields and the mountains beyond. His frills were a color that translator could not identify. I will write a report, he said quietly, about what I have seen here, about what humans really are. What will you say? Asked. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I will say that Earth is not it is a training ground. Every human who survives to adulthood has been forged by conditions that would kill most species. You do not live despite your planet's hostility. You thrive because of it. You are not merely adapted to danger. You are comfortable with it. He paused, his frills shifting through several colors. I will say that you make friends with predators, that you harness fire, that you walk through storms, that you find joy in the same things that would destroy us. And I will say that despite all of this, you are kind. You are generous. You invited me to dinner and worried that I was not eating enough." His frills settled into that unidentifiable color again. "But I will also say this. Humans conquered their world with sharpened sticks and persistence. They hunted predators to extinction. They reshaped their planet to suit their needs. They survived ice ages and plagues and wars against each other, and they remember how to do all of it." He looked at with what she was beginning to recognize as deep respect. "I will recommend that the Galactic Compact never give humans a reason to view us as a threat, because you are gentle and welcoming and full of love, but you are also survivors, and I have seen what survivors can do." Smiled. It was the same warm smile she had given him when they first met. "We do not want to be a threat," she said. "We want to be friends. We want to learn from you and share what we know. We want to explore the galaxy together and find wonders that neither of us could find alone." "I believe you," said, "and I think that is exactly what makes humanity so remarkable. You have every reason to be aggressive and paranoid, but instead you choose hope. You choose connection. You choose to reach out to strange beings from distant stars and offer them tea and food and kindness." He made a gesture that's translator identified as deep formal respect. "I am honored to have met you, of Earth. I hope we will work together for many years to come." Returned the gesture as best she could. "I hope so too, and you are always welcome at my grandmother's farm. She will make sure you eat enough." The alien ship lifted off and disappeared into the blue sky. Watched it go, standing in the field where she had played as a child. Came to stand beside her. "They were strange," the old woman said, "but nice. I hope they come back." "I think they will," said. "I think many more will come once word spreads. Earth is going to become very popular." "Good. We can show them what life really means. We can teach them how to live without being so afraid." Put her arm around her grandmother's shoulders. Together, they walked back toward the farmhouse. Above them, the sun shone down from a sky that the galaxy called deadly. Around them, the wind carried the scent of cherry blossoms and growing things. Beneath their feet, the earth that had shaped their species held them up as it always had. The Academy had called it, but knew the truth. This was a world of life, fierce and beautiful and endlessly surprising, and humans were its children, shaped by its challenges, strengthened by its dangers, and forever in love with its wild and wonderful heart. Somewhere in the galaxy, this report would soon be published. It would change how the civilized species thought about Earth and humanity. It would open doors that had been closed and build bridges that had seemed impossible. But here, on this small farm in the Korean countryside, nothing changed. Went to check on her vegetables. The dog barked at a passing butterfly. The cat slept in patches of sunlight. And stood in the place where she had grown up, breathing the air that had given her life, knowing that no matter how far she traveled among the stars, this would always be her home. This would always be Earth. And she was proud to be human.